Such a long, long time to be gone, and a short time to be there.
Recording in progress.
You ready now? If we haven't met before or you haven't been to one of these get-togethers, my name is Justin. And I'll talk for a while, and then if you have any questions, we can certainly go there. And if you have any comments, telling me how full of shit I am or anything of that nature, then we can do that too. When I walked out of my room and there were a few people in the kitchen, and somebody said good morning to me. And I thought of this good morning idea. Most people know here I've spent some time in South America, in Peru, Bolivia, and around people who spoke a language called Aymara. And every day they say, Askiyuru, Askiyuru. That means good day, Askiyuru. And but on Sunday, they say Suma Domingo Uru, Good Sunday. And I never took much note of that, other than it was a custom. And then I spent a good bit of time in France, traveling around to some of the smaller villages. And every day they say bonjour, bonjour, bonjour. But on Sunday they say bon dimanche, good Sunday. Thousands of miles away, every day they say good day. Sunday they say good Sunday. Every day they say good day. Sunday they say good Sunday. So what's this Sunday shit? We know both places were influenced traumatically by the church, by the Catholic Church. So there's some frame of reference there. But there's something else too, a recognition of what at one time was an understanding of a need for something. You know, in the Bible, the day of rest and things like that, and the concepts that we've grown up hearing. But a day for what? A day for rest, as interpreted in Israel when I was there, that on their day of rest they shut down the elevator. You can't take an elevator, you gotta walk up the fucking steps. That's their idea of a day of rest. Shut down the elevator. Don't turn on the lights. That's their idea of not doing something. Not doing something. But I have another understanding of not doing something. Of not doing. That if we recognize its importance, the importance of not doing, that it might not only be for one day, one compartmentalized day where we said this is a day not of rest, not of different activities, but of hope in not doing, not hope in doing. Because the rest of our lives is, whether you know it or not, infused with the hope of doing what we're doing. What I'm doing now will help me. What I'm doing now will help you. What I'm doing now will help us. What I'm thinking about doing now will help me. What I'm worrying about doing now will help me. And what I'm doing now will help me. But to have recognize the importance of the absence of this activity of doing. So every language has its Good Sunday. People here speak different languages, you know. So I contributed the Aymara and the French. Any others? Any other contribute a Good Sunday in a different language? I can't hear you.
Buen día.
Buen domingo.
Hmm?
Buen día.
Buen dia. Uh-huh.
Buen domingo.
Hmm?
Buen domingo.
Buon domingo. Italian.
No, that's Spanish. It's Buona Domenica in Spanish.
Buona Domenica. Italian.
Ravivar Mubarak Ho.
Hindi. Very good. How about German?
Guten Tag.
No, that's no.
Morgen.
What? No, that's good day. Good Sunday.
Guten
Sonntag.
Sonntag.
Sonntag. Guten Sonntag, yeah.
Anybody else? We're language limited here. Though. Well, it would be a start, even if it was compartmentalized into a Sunday, to have a day with a diminished hope of doing and an elevated hope of not doing. That wasn't conceptualized in the way that it has been historically conceptualized. So today is August 31st, right? Is it? Right. It's my son's birthday. He's about 50. And he grew up with the first group that I ever started in Oregon. We took him in the cradle to that very first group. So he was at the very first meeting that I ever had. Not because I wanted him to be indoctrinated that way, but we couldn't leave him home. And so he grew up in that venue, and when he was 12, I took him to Morocco for an extended period of time. When he was 14, I took him to Alaska for an extended period of time. When he was 19, I took him to Thailand for an extended period of time because I wanted to expose him to possibilities. Not that I wanted to inculcate him or initiate him or teach him something, but I wanted to expose him to whatever he might not otherwise be exposed to. And that was basically my perspective in relation to him, and my job in relation to him was not so much to teach him things or teach him my things or teach him right from wrong, but to expose him to things and let him develop in the way he developed. And he developed having almost no value for anything that I talk about. Some value certainly for the social work that we do. How could a person not? But he's a fierce advocate for social change, and I'm a fierce advocate for internal change. You know, he works very hard, he's very dedicated, but he's developed, he's a good guy, he does good stuff. He's developed his own world, his own way of thinking. But I did try to indoctrinate him in one way. And that was repeatedly putting in front of him the contradiction that words do anything more than represent objects, or represent feelings, or represent thoughts, but they are not that. This is not a cup. A cup is a word that describes this, but has no relationship to this whatsoever. The word cup and the word hat are related. The object cup and this object and this object are related, but the words that describe them have no relation whatsoever other than they're the description. And I thought that was a precious lesson, because we have distorted our perspective with terminology, and I want to explain what I mean by that. Something that I discovered in this exploration, in this study, is that all words start out as verbs. Everything is in motion. There are no fixed things, but in order for practicality, we do have to define things as fixed things. But when verbs become nouns, some distortion happens, and some humongous distortion happens. And I want to talk about a couple of those words for a while. The word trust. I trust you is a verb. The word trust is a noun. I love you, I love chocolate, is a verb. Love is a noun. Whenever a verb becomes a noun, some humongous distortion takes place. And I want to talk about these two words so you don't have to think that this is going to be a lecture on semantics, which I would enjoy, but you probably wouldn't. Our effort to define and understand trust, to start with, starts off with thinking that trust is a thing, and that we can gain trust, and that we can learn trust, and that we can achieve trust. But in actuality, trust is the absence of mistrust. There is no such thing as trust. There is no such noun. If I said, could somebody give me a nickel? Somebody have a nickel? Give me a nickel. If you had a nickel and you felt okay to do it, call attention to yourself by reaching into your pocket, and everything in your pocket flops out that you don't want people to see. You would give me a nickel, and there would be no trust involved because you had nothing to risk. What do I care about this nickel? So this thing that we call trust, and we can actually say, I need to trust you, is based on the lack of understanding, and the understanding, possible understanding, that we have something to risk here. We feel in danger. Not that we have to trust something outside of ourselves, but we have to understand the danger that we feel. Is it real? Is there something here to fear? Am I risking something? So I contend with that frequently. Somebody I meet says, well, I'd like to be part of your experiment, but how can I trust you? How do I know I can trust you? Well, you don't have to know that you can trust me. You have to know what you're putting at risk. That's all you have to know. Because if it's a nickel, you don't have to trust me. Or if it's parallel to a nickel, you don't have to trust me. And then if you see in yourself that you sense danger, you can examine, is that danger real? What do I have to fear here? Why am I afraid? Why am I hesitant? Why am I reticent? My reticence is being blamed on you. How can I trust you? With what? In my case, I never ask people to do anything that could possibly be more than a nickel. So trust would be off the table. An experimental attitude, a feeling of somewhat dissatisfied with the present and how it's going and what's come about, some hunger for some possibility in the future other than what you already crossed paths with. Some of those things, but not trust. Think of how much more relaxed you would be if that concept were eliminated. At least put to the side, except for a situation where it's not a nickel. Maybe not even a quarter or a dollar. Maybe your physical safety, maybe your emotional well-being. Okay. Maybe your precious time. Okay. If any of your time is still that. So think of the distortion that's happened that you are totally unaware of, that's come from starting with a verb, and transcending into becoming a noun. How about the word love? As enormously subjective as it is, let's use it in one of its finer or higher definitions. Chocolate. One of its higher definitions, the feeling that comes from a human, that was a joke, the feeling that comes from a human that's difficult to understand, but magnificent to experience. Starting off as a verb, an action, a motion, and coming to be something that we have to define, a noun. What is love? And the incredible misunderstanding that's come from our thinking that love is something to achieve. Bertrand Russell, one of my heroes, said that none of us are born stupid. We're born ignorant, but education makes us stupid. We learn there's something to achieve, that love is something that we can get, rather than recognize that love is our natural state. Love is, on examination, on exploration, the absence of separateness. The natural inclusion of other human beings, other parts of our creation. the lack of separation from those things, from those people, which results in caring, which results in compassion, which results in helping. All natural manifestations when that natural connection is revealed. When that separation, that artificial separation, is removed. Now everybody knows the separation of religion and color and sex and, the ones that are now become obvious. But the separation of you and me is not so obvious. You're there and I'm here. You need what you need, I know what I need. You do what you do, I do what I do. And having that be such a powerful mantra, that love is no longer something that naturally can be uncovered, but love is something that we have to quest for. Something we don't have and we can get. Love is not gettable. It's only uncoverable because it's already here. It's our natural state. We are a human, as it said in that video, we are a human being. We're a very big, multifaceted being. It may not look like it through these eyes. But all the tomatoes on that plant are clearly part of that plant. All you tomatoes are part of that plant. And anything that you uncover in actuality will reveal that lack of separateness, that connectedness, and will also allow you that feeling of love. So when people ask me, well, why do you do this? I would never say the words, because I love you. Because the possibility of that being understood is impossible. But the answer, what else is there to do? Once one uncovers that artificial separation, which conditions do uncover. Clearly, people take on each other in situations of catastrophe. Clearly. There's no differentiation. What house do you live in? Who's your family? What color are you? None of the separating factors become real in a hurricane. What the fuck? What's a hurricane? It's a bunch of wind. In a flood, in a disaster, in a war. It's there. It can be uncovered by circumstance, but you certainly don't want to evoke circumstance of those kinds to have to feel that feeling. And why all this traveling around doing social work? Because we're revealing the conditions in doing it that allow us to feel not separate. Like I want to help these people. Conditions. But how about this condition? That song try to love each other. All those songs try to love each other. You can't try to love each other. There is no trying to love. Love is not a trying. Love has already been achieved because it is the lack of separation between people. And there's this ridiculous idea that family, that birth family, is the essence of this, is the quote, that is the center of this experience. It's only the conditions. People you can't get rid of. You can't get rid of them, so you feel the inclusion with them. You got nothing in common with them. You don't like being around them past 20 minutes. And when you do, you regret that you did. You buy houses so that they go elsewhere. But you have these conditions. I mean, you're going to be around him for a while, but how long? How long? So, okay, that's enough. Enough is enough. Same thing. Where is she? Same thing.
But I like them.
But it does simulate the situation. It is a condition that allows us to care. It allows us to take care of. It allows us to be concerned about. It allows us to have our thoughts go there, away from ourselves, which is monumental to start with. So family, crisis, allows us those separations to fall away. We should not be satisfied with that conditional love. We should not be satisfied with that conditional separation, or conditional togetherness, that conditional removal of separation. Now, clearly, all connections with people are affected by personal style, by certain circumstances, by time and place, and all these things, and they should be. So everybody is not your closest person, but that you wish people well in actuality. That you wish them well in actuality. That you root for them to go on in peace and happiness. In actuality, not in theory, not in everyone, not in you guys, but you, and you, and you, and you, and me. Especially me. That is not an unreasonable happening. I teach the removal of obstacles. I don't teach the attainment of anything. If it hasn't been given to us, we're not going to get it. We're not all that great. It's not only in that time, in this time of chaos, that we're not that great. We were never that great. We're on the road as humans. I mean, we're not in the caves huddling in fear because of the predators. But we are in a very teenage stage as creatures. So we're certainly not going to gain enlightenment. We're not going to gain peace. We're not going to gain anything. We're not that. There's not that much going on here. There's a lot going on compared to other things, plants and animals. We're not talking dolphins, I can understand that. I don't mess with the dolphin stuff. But we can uncover. We can definitely uncover. We can definitely explore what has covered us so that it can fall away. We definitely can discover what has covered us so that it can fall away. And there's a lot there. You're not a natural human being. You're a human being with coverings that have made you afraid of things that don't warrant fear, overly concerned with what other people think about you, terrified of being embarrassed. And I use that word terrified because your actions reflect that. Terrified of being seen in a way that you don't want to be seen. All these things cover up. Thinking that competition is a necessity. All these concepts are not only in our thoughts, they're in our actions. We reflect them in our actions whether we know it or not. They can be uncovered, discovered for a person who has that scientific explorative nature. And those things can fall away. They have for me, they can for you. But the imagination that you are a package as you are that can actually achieve or experience the finer realms of life, like peace and tranquility. You're not. Because those densities have been added onto you. If you have any unreasonable fear, if you have any of this density of negativity, if you carry that around, we're not talking about life and death stuff. Embarrassment is not a life and death emotion. Then you're not a candidate for whatever a human being could actually experience, a finer human being. Love will be your quest rather than your experience. Love, because it's a beautiful thing. And the moments that you've had of it are irreplaceable, magnificent, wonderful. So you seek them out with your doings, but it's a not doing. It's an uncovering. The trust and distrust of people. What do they want from me? What can they do for me? Do to me? What's the problem here? The blame, the excuses, the not recognizing what has become of us. And then everyone here, you couldn't be sitting here if you didn't have a moment when you clicked into something better. Whether it was a beer or a joint or the woods or sex or some music, some moment where you felt, this is the way it's supposed to be. This is the way it's supposed to be. So you became addicted to the beer or the or one of those things on that list. How could you not? Or you become hopeless. You lose hope. You would never go to a doctor and say and think, my purpose here is to discredit this person because it's hopeless. You go to the doctor or you try some new thing to alleviate something that gives you trouble with hope that it could do that. But somewhere in you, even in this gathering, you have a voice, you have something to, I will be better off if I can discredit what this guy is saying. I'll be better off if I can diminish what this guy is putting forth. I will be better off. That is one of the things that can happen. Hope can disappear. It can descend to hope in the next moment of the next meal or the next activity or the next impressing or the next whatever, next getting away from all those things. And that repetition of hope diminishes hope, so that's what happens. Somebody I know picked up a book and asked me what I think of it. And it was a book by Bertrand Russell, who I don't know if you know who that is or you've crossed paths with him. It's from England and fairly recent, the last 100 years. That's fairly recent. And a mathematician, philosopher, and I have connected over the years. So they asked what I thought of this book, and I said, this person is one of my heroes, Bertrand Russell. Modern heroes. And I went on to describe what I meant by that and name some other people who probably people haven't heard much of, but maybe some. Descartes and Wittgenstein and Kurt Gödel. But curiously enough, they were all mathematicians. And maybe most of all, Omar Khayyam. Do you know that name? Yes. Omar Khayyam. Most people know that name from poetry. Persian poetry, the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam. Wrote poems and is known for that, but was also an accomplished mathematician who some of his work is still current, has not been renovated or disproved. From 1,000 years ago, that's when he lived, Omar Khayyam. So this list of people, curiously enough, that I was naming, were all mathematicians and philosophers, and I thought that was really interesting. People who I have respected their discovery. How they live their lives, I can't be sure. I didn't, I wasn't there. I know Bertrand Russell was married 4 times. I don't know what that indicates for a person who lived in his life, but I know that the ideas that they put forth and the way they put them forth and the understandings they put forth are ones that I think are valuable. And so I was thinking about, so what is the essence here? What is the essence here? And what I came up with which might or might not be of interest to you, is something that Omar Khayyam studied 1,000 years ago, and that is the nature of the concept of numbers and the nature of the concept of ratios. Do you know what a ratio is? This is to this as this is to that. And I realized that this is what I value and this is what I teach. Because if you watch that video the other day at Ananda, or if you didn't, what I teach is that life is the school. Now, life is the school. You know, life is the color of the hat. So how is that? What am I going to learn from that? What am I going to learn from these sunglasses are heavier than those sunglasses? What am I going to learn from somebody put these drug things in my cup? I'm not sure what to think about that. You know, the different colors of the flowers. Okay, everything that we do, fixing cars and cooking food, and they're all, the life is the school. If you can learn from that, then you can move on from coarse to fine, wherever you are, from coarse to fine. If you can learn from life, you don't have to learn from some how-to book. But how do you learn from life? That's the key. You learn from life by recognizing its ratios. This is to this as this is to that. So everything is reflected in something. So you're talking about, how do I learn 4 is to 8? You know, 4 is to 8. The number 4 is to the number 8. As the number 16 is to something, to X. So the way in math you figure that is you multiply these two and you discover what these two are. And it works. What an amazing thing. How if we could do that in life? We got anger. We got the person. We got a salad, right? And how does it, we have to go like this. But they're not numbers. So how do we figure this out? We figure this out because we find it interesting that life reflects something at every moment, and it doesn't only, if you're uptight in the living room, it doesn't mean it's the living room, it's you. And when you're in the kitchen, you don't have to say, well, it was the living room, because you've learned the connection. You've learned the connection, and the essence of that connection is you. And you learn that over and over and over and over and over and over again, because you've made these connections. Maybe not mathematically, but you've learned to see the nature of the way the tree grows has some lesson for how you grow. The lesson of how the car runs has some lesson about how you run. The lesson how this is arranged and you arranged it has some reflection about how you arrange things. The lesson of how you talk to people reveals something about your perspective of what this relation is. The fact that you're afraid of certain things reflects something about your perspective of something else. So you don't need a book to learn that. You don't need a lecture to learn that. You have to learn how to make these connections. And the the magical part is that they're all connected to start with. So all you have to do is learn the key to reveal those connections. weird activity. Reaction to weird activity. What is the connection between reaction to weird activity and if you look at the way if you sit in the garden and you see the way the bees are, how is that you? The way the umbrella moves when the wind goes, how is that you? When you're frying an egg, the way the egg reacts to the whatever grease you put in there, that's you. It's all you. It's all connected. Motion is motion. Atoms are atoms. Molecules are molecules. There's a million lessons to learn in life if you learn how to do it, and you haven't. You haven't because even these amazing people who have written these amazing things that I mentioned, Kurt Gödel, somebody who I personally knew years ago, brilliant mathematician, as brilliant as there is. A philosopher with incredibly incredible depth perception, but was disturbed and unhappy and didn't find peace in his life. So knowing the theory is part, but knowing how to reveal the connection is the missing experience. Not to achieve peace or get love, but to uncover it. Everything I teach is how to do what you don't know how to do in order to uncover what could be uncovered and to see what's there. How to become yourself, how to become something other than this beautiful, innate goodness covered by everything that has been covered by, never by intention, always by circumstance. You were defenseless as a child, you were defenseless as a teenager, and you're defenseless now. You either disbelieve or believe things that you hear, and you don't have the basis of being that natural human where you can make those assessments. So you're making assessments based on something that's been created. If you're covered, you're making the assessment from the covering, not from the inside. You can't get to the inside because the covering is too dense to make these assessments, and these assessments are perpetually being made. Who's good, who's bad, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's not good, what I need, what I don't need, what I should be doing, what I shouldn't be doing. All these decisions being made from your covering, from your onion skin. Not from the what's beneath it, not from the core. You can't get to the core. You have circumstances can bring you there from a minute, and then you make decisions. But then you wake up in the morning, what was that? What was that I decided? What was that I thought? What was that I knew? It's gone. In whatever way you get stoned, whatever way you get to a finer place for a little while, whatever thoughts you have in that time, whatever feelings you have in that time, once you start to act, you can't act with them. You can't act from them because you act from your covering. Your spontaneous actions are from that covering. I teach people how to discover what that covering is, and sometimes some of it falls away. I've had, at best, mediocre success in conveying this message and bringing it to fruition in other people other than myself. Really mediocre success. And it's understandable. This world is so full of promises. This is the world of promises. You can do what's never been done. But meanwhile, life goes on all around you. So full of promises, how can anything I say compete with that? It can't. There's even, for us, or at least most of us, if you've got a little health, you got a little money, you got a little a social ability to maneuver, you have something promising you the minute you walk out away from here. Whatever it is. You don't walk into the abyss of depression. You walk into the next meal, the next interaction, the next whatever it is, the next sight, the next sound, the next diversion, whatever. The world is so full of promise. How in the fuck can we negotiate that? I don't have the answer to that question. I put out what I put out. Few people come around. It's always been that way. What I recommend it to my kids, what I recommend to my friends, is whatever calls you, do it like a bat out of hell. Do it. Do it. Do it. Because if you really do it, there's only one thing that can happen. You will get dissatisfied. Because it's finite. It doesn't matter if it's what kind of conquest it is. If you're not completely dense, and certainly nobody here is, and certainly people I personally have known in my life aren't, you will, if you go for it, in whatever you think, whatever it is, you will get disillusioned, you will get bored, you will see the finiteness of that undertaking, whatever it is. So that's what I recommend to people. And if you've gotten so that you start to recognize that the next thing that you're going to do is probably going to be a repetition to some degree of the last thing you did. So after 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, you start to get the idea that, and you've gone for it. You're not disillusioned because you never went for it. You're disillusioned because you went for it. And you saw its limitations. You get to there and you start feeling like, well, I think there's got to be something else one more time with a different wrinkle if I do it in California, if I do it standing on my head, if I do it with a different set of people. It's going to be the key. That story doesn't stick with you so much as it's promised to stick with so many people. That's not going to be many people, and I cross paths with some of those people. But I don't cross paths with a lot of those people because then there's a book that's saying exactly what I'm saying with different words, not as eloquently, not as spontaneously, but there's books that say all kinds of good stuff. But the book doesn't supply the support system. The book doesn't supply the person that'll be there if you start walking off the edge of the cliff thinking that you're doing what you read, but really only you interpret it in the way you interpret it, but it had nothing to do with what the person said, you know, that package is not there. That package does not exist. Or you hear someone who other people elevate, and you elevate, and seems elevated. They're sitting pretty up high there, higher than I'm sitting. I'm sitting on a beach chair. I'm sitting on a beach chair with a rag on it. So, I mean, if they happen to be alive, but usually, frequently, they're not alive anymore. So they become your counsel, they become your whatever it is. I don't know how they can counsel you if they're not alive anymore. I don't know how they can counsel you if they're in a different country and they come by every whatever it is. I wouldn't have a clue of how to do that. Because life is the school, and it's unfolding right now. Not at a seminar next week, not at a meeting, a massive meeting of thousands of people in a year. It's unfolding right now, right now. There's a lesson there right now, right now, right now. And so I teach people who are receptive how to learn from right now. How to love, how to trust, how to relax. All those verbs, to, verbs. I don't teach people about love. I teach people how to love by uncovering the obstacles. How to care by uncovering the obstacles. How to be compassionate, uncovering the obstacles. Not circumstantially, but actually. And there's so much relaxation in that, because if what you get is good, if the good you get is dependent on circumstance, you will become addicted to that circumstance. You will become dependent on that circumstance. You will become habituated to that circumstance. And if that circumstance is removed from you, or is extracted from your life, or is decreased from your life, either by some circumstance, frequently by age, but many other things as well, conditions, then you will lose your peace, you will lose your happiness, you will lose your contentment, you will lose your compassion, you will lose your love. You will lose all those things because they were dependent on circumstance. That is not peace. Peace can't be dependent on circumstance, because circumstance requires maintenance. And if it's very selective, what gives you your peace, then huge amounts of maintenance. So much maintenance that the activities you do to relax require so much maintenance that you can never relax. And that sounds humorous or clever, but it's actual. So I think that's all I have to say, and I'm very receptive to hearing either people's questions or comments or things they would like me to talk about. And we could take a little break, 5 or 10 minutes.
Tell people on Zoom that they can write their question.
People on the...
On Zoom, they can type
okay,
questions.
if the people on Zoom want to write something, then
Chat.
what do they do?
It's in the chat. of Zoom.
They write something in the chat, then I'll see what we can do with that. You're very little, you folks. I hope you're eating well. Okay. Okay, well, if you want to, we can get back in a few minutes if you've had enough. I understand it, and you certainly don't have to come back, and we won't talk about you after. But in 5 or 10 minutes, we'll get back together again. If you have anything you want to talk about, we could do that. Jumapili Nijumar. That means good morning in Swahili. I just looked it up. Which is something you'd want to know if you're going to Kenya. That's what the main language there, other than English. Do you know that? Did you know that? You know those words? Okay. You're in the sun if you don't want to be. You okay?
For now.
Okay.
There's one person that's
Hmm?
There's one person that's not here yet.
Okay. I'll have to repeat my Swahili word. Did you know that word?
No,
No.
I didn't recognize it.
Did you learn some?
I learned some
That's
from
Google
it.
Translate. I don't know how accurate it is, but that's what they said. Some of the people here are going to Kenya in January. So it's good to know a little of the language there. I was in Quebec. I was in Quebec a few weeks ago, and it was interesting because they speak really basically no English in the place where I was, all French. I wasn't aware that it wasn't bilingual. The signs were in French, you know. So I got on I was on a bus, and they were making some announcements on the bus, and it was in French, and it was, I don't know, maybe a 3-minute announcement, long announcement in French, which I pretty much understand, but so that announcement happened, and then the English translation was, welcome to Quebec. I'm not exaggerating either. So you might, if you go into Kenya, you might want to learn some language. So, like that. Okay, anything? Go ahead.
I just have a comment. I just have a lot of gratitude and kind of a blow mind that for your words even, that you can actually sit there and speak and convey such a phenomenal message through words.
Okay. Go ahead.
To run off of that, yeah, I thought that was really interesting, putting forth almost like a theory of everything.
Yeah.
Like if you have the idea of being into mathematicians and ratios and carrying that forward. So I heard it almost like if I understand something and the relationship in something, on the other side of the equation, there's me and something to understand about myself.
Exactly.
In a similar format.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. And then if you really get good at it, you can.
Yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I found the ratio part interesting, and one thing I've noticed recently is I got some plant cuttings from a woman whose house I stayed in at an Airbnb, and she gave me maybe 15 plant cuttings, and that's a new thing developing in me as gardening. And what I noticed is that they're dying, most of them, and it looks like it's from overwatering. And so I'm thinking about what you said about the internal being reflected in the external. And I think there's some obstacle to overdoing, overwatering, overtending. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to see that more. And
That's a good one. especially overthinking. Okay,
few on Zoom. Here's the first one from Irina.
speak up, okay.
From Irina in Romania. My question's very simple. Justin always smiles and joy radiates from him. Maybe he knows some secret or exercise how to keep the heart joyful and not give in to callousness.
I appreciate that, Irina. I hope you're doing well. I know you have challenging circumstances, and we're aware of that, and feeling really supportive of your challenging circumstances, to the point that your name comes up in our discussions in fairly frequently. What can we do with Irina? And recently we had a slideshow that we showed to a bunch of people that we've never met before, and you're one of the stars of the slideshow, and you're the help that you gave, and then the interest that you had, and the part you played when we were in Romania. The only I don't have a secret other than what I talked about, is that happiness is really a state of okayness with what happens. The control of what happens is sometimes great and sometimes limited. That will vary. If we can control what happens, certainly we should try to control what happens. But if we get addicted to controlling what happens, it becomes burdensome. Because sometimes shit happens. And so my well-being is based on that sometimes I try to control what happens, and sometimes I recognize what happens is not to be controlled. And so I'm okay with it, and I have taken a passive attitude in relation to what I can't control, and feel more accepting, more appreciative, more reflective, more philosophical about what happens, and that has become my perspective, which allows me to relax and feel okay and not be anxious. Now, I know that you're challenged in a way that I particularly are not challenged, so I don't feel casually about saying that to a person who has a challenging life, as I know that you do. So I feel like the first thing, if we cross paths with a person with a challenging life, clearly challenging, not challenging from, like, you know what I mean, like I don't like my neighbor kind of challenging, then our job is to feel the compassion in action for that person and do what we can. So I hope that the more that we can have interactions with you, even though you're a lot of miles away, the better, and anything that I can do to help support you, whether it's with ideas, tools, money, whatever it is, we're here. Okay?
Thanks for that last answer. That was.
You have to speak up a little louder.
I was thanking you for that last answer. That was helpful. I have a question. I recently read your chapter on the 10 freedoms, and I'm wondering if you could speak to the freedom from a distorted sense of responsibility. And I've been thinking about that kind of in juxtaposition to the manifesto that you wrote some time ago. And so I'm wondering if you could say something about that.
Yeah. I generally have stayed away from these catch things, whether it's the books I've written or in the way I talk. I'm definitely anti-cliche. And because I know that cliches are too facile and they're too easily misinterpreted. So I stay away from that. So I was like I was maneuvered into this 10 freedoms idea, because, that's the way a lot of things are put forth, the 5 noble truths and the this and the that. So, and Justin's 10 freedoms, like that. The 13th, the amendments and everything has, it's got to be contained in a list or something. But those are things that I do believe and support and recognize is important to understand. So one of these things, I'm not calling them the 10 freedoms, one of these things is the misconception of responsibility. And responsibility is generally recognized as responsibility equals burden. Not always, but frequently responsibility equals burden. But responsibility, the ability to respond, is really our natural state. And what's come of that is duty, guilt. Ooh, that's nice. Is it something I said? All those corrupting elements that have caused responsibility to come to equal burden, or frequently equal burden. And it doesn't, because sometimes it is for us to respond, and sometimes it's not for us to respond. And generally, without all those extra elements of fear and guilt and image, it would be clear to us when response is indicated and when it's not. And the misconception that responsibility is burden, because sometimes responsibility is joy. Now, the joy of responsibility has fairly well come down to pride. Well, I was able to help in that situation, and let me tell you about it. There was an element of that in our slideshow. How could it not be an element? It's American. It's part of the American tune. I'm proud of what I'm doing, and I want you to know about it. Okay, well that's okay unless it becomes an addiction, but it's part of that. But if that's the only way you feel okay to respond, is that so that you can get credit, then that's a burden. Then it becomes the misconception of responsibility is responsibility needs credit. And as I told people before, and I just said it a few days ago, my childhood hero was the Lone Ranger. And the Lone Ranger, more recently, Kung Fu. Caine, Kwai Chang Caine from Kung Fu. He did the good, and he left in the middle of the night, and there was no, oh, we really appreciate it, or thank you. He didn't need that. The Lone Ranger just hi-yo silver away, That's my feeling. That's my feeling. Like recognition doesn't have to be. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But it's not part of the package. Being able to respond is a natural thing, and when you can, then it's just joyous if you don't have the other shit to deal with. That's a good answer I gave just now. Okay, anybody else? Go ahead.
You talked about non-doing, and yesterday I set up a few hours to not be busy, the kitchen, the whatever, the orchard, all of that stuff. And so the circumstances is I didn't have to do anything, but I could see, okay, what am I going to do? Read? Play this instrument? Or talk to myself? And it was a discovery of the addiction. It was like, whoa, that is really
an addiction.
I really felt it.
Yes, well, that's a good thing to feel, and it's not pleasant. And I remember feeling that, and the first times I felt that, it was traumatic to me almost to feel like I was an addict, and I was paying for that addiction. And the addiction in this case is activity, doing, accomplishing, even the smallest accomplishment. Picking up some piece of paper from the floor and feeling, like I accomplished something. and having life be based on accomplishment, whether however ridiculous that accomplishment is, and the rest of the time thinking about potential accomplishments and hoping and everything that involves with that addiction. Well, if you recognize how ingrained it is in you, you will be patient with yourself in the discarding of that or the letting of that go. It will take a while to let that go and will happen in very small increments, but those increments are precious. And if you're addicted 100% and it goes down to 95%, that's peace. That's like a whole different thing. You know how it is when you have bodily troubles and you're relieved for them, those bodily troubles for 15 minutes. It's like incredible for those 15 minutes. So you have to be patient. Once you recognize that you have a problem, you see one of the weights that you didn't know got added onto you. It got added onto you in increments, and it's got to come off in increments. And that's the story. It's going to come off from you in increments, and for a while, it's going to be problematic. But appreciate the increments when they come off. Talk about them, brag about them. You know, I had a minute when I wasn't talking to myself. Hallelujah. Halla-fucking-lujah. Not about all the other minutes when you can't. Okay, anybody else?
Sybil on the East Coast. I run a recovery house for persons in alcohol and drug addiction. I see them doing things that point to massive unconsciousness, ranging from how much paper towels they waste to inability to have a job or control their finances. How can I help point things out to them so they can hear it and be able to take it in a helpful way? Furthermore, I see things in myself which makes it confusing as to how to give advice when I have similar flaws.
Right, well this is where ratios come in, because paper towel waste in one person is something equal in another person. And in actuality, how much you could really do to alter another person's behavior is extremely limited. But it's not nothing, it's something. But really the basis of being of altering somebody else's behavior is that person observing that different behavior is possible. If you don't see that different behavior is possible, in your experience, it's not possible. So if you can be around a person, a group of people that exhibit different behavior than you, it'll occur to you, wow, this is possible. Here are people that don't, and fill in whatever is destructive that you do. So really, I don't know what she can tell the other people, but she can see in herself her own addictions, whatever they're to, and be alertly exploring, struggling, working with, examining, letting go of some of those addictions, and people will see that something. If there's something else that can be done to alter other people's behavior in a more direct way, I would not be the right person to ask, because other than medication or crisis or some externals, I wouldn't know how to do that, and I don't promote that. Yes, go ahead. You have to speak up for me.
I'm familiar with this idea of the analogies, but
You have to speak up louder.
okay, you know the idea of analogies, 1/5 equals something over x and finding the x, but to learn about yourself, but realistically, I'm not sure how to get that going in a way in my life so that's really happening a lot. I'm seeing a lot of analogies, like I'm not sure how to get that started.
You can't. You can't, because the connection between things already exists, and you have obstacles which cover up those things. Whenever somebody asks me, I don't know how to do that, my answer is almost always the same. Not necessarily with practical things, like the ability to operate a chainsaw is natural. All you have to do is uncover the ability to. I wouldn't say that to somebody. But ability to see things as they are is a natural ability. It can be covered, and it is covered from the start, from the first impressions we get, and other people's interpretations of that, of those things. Some gross examples, Make sure you say thank you to the person, or whatever it's been. Giving words to somebody, the kid picks up something, you say, hat, that's a hat. It's not a hat. It's never been a hat. It has nothing to do with a hat. A hat is letters, H-A-T. It's a sound, hat. This is something else. So these are all coverings. If you uncover, you will see things. You will see connections of the things. I teach uncovering. The more you uncover, the more connections you see. People take drugs, psychedelic drugs, and they look at things and see things they wouldn't have seen before. They see the movement of things. They see the connection between things, because those drugs have they're altering their state, and they see things that were there. They were there in the first place. So I teach a method of uncovering, and your idea that you're going to do connections is part of the addiction of that there is something to do in relation to getting free, in relation to getting finer. Finer, you're never going to get finer than the Creator produced you. That's not going to happen. If the Creator produced whatever it produced, you're not going to match wits with the Creator, however you consider, whether it's nature or deity or whatever. That's the brain. Yours is the molecule of the brain, and that molecule is not going to do better than that brain. That brain created something beautiful. We have covered that something beautiful, and we can uncover that something so that that beautiful thing comes forth. And part of that beautiful thing is seeing the connection between things, seeing the ratios, seeing anybody else?
I am wondering about the connection between the encouragement you said you've given to your children to really go after something, and I guess the practice, so to speak, of non-doing, and how, if those two things are possibly complementary, and if so, how?
That's a great question. I see life as phases, and those phases they're kind of imprints, so that you have a period of life that's maybe a cycle of life that's maybe parabolic. I describe it as a boomerang, which is a parabolic. You're going out, you're exploring externally. If somebody turns you internally, it's a distortion. You're not born to explore internally. You're born to explore externally. The more you explore, so the idea of teaching a kid meditation is poison. Poison. I have poison. It's bad because it's good for you, doesn't mean it's good for them. Because they're supposed to be encouraged to explore for a period. Now, in that period, the only thing you really need is some amount of boldness, some amount of permission, go for it, some amount of acceptance, some support system which will support that, and the natural thing is that people will go for it. They will explore. Only fear stops people from exploring. Only reticence and hesitation about what people think will retard exploration, but exploration is where they're at, where it's at. That's what should be. Now, there's a period of exploration that should not last a whole life of externals. At some point, there's then a period of examination of this exploration, of this period of exploration. Is this getting repetitive? Is this getting repetitious? Is this getting meaningful? So if you picture it as this kind of an arc, you explore, then you get to start recognizing, if you're paying attention at all, not in a spiritual way, but in any way, you're recognizing that I think I did this before. I think I saw this before. I think this is me all over again in a different situation. So you start to go through this period of examination. But you're not looking to come home or leave it all behind or anything like that. But you're starting to wonder about stuff. Wondering about stuff, what you should do and what you shouldn't do, is not good in the exploration period. It will just inhibit you. Questioning, well, what's the good questioning? Will you sacrifice your life? Will this bungee cord hold you when you jump down? Are you sure? You're skydiving. Is that okay? But other than that, questioning what people think, what will your career be? How will it affect your future? All that is retarding things. It will slow you down. But then after a while, those questions come in. And it's healthy that they come in. And that period of questioning can lead to a wanting to discover something internally, to discover some entire different level of what human beings are about. But the poison is when a person reads a book on the way going out about that it's better coming home, and they get to think, you get the picture, that's not good. And so how-to books are very sketchy, because how-to books generally are telling you how to be peaceful. But you're not supposed to be peaceful, you're supposed to be experiencing. Sometimes it's great, sometimes it's painful, sometimes it's that. So how can we be supportive of each other, recognizing where we are in this cycle of things? And so I deal with people that are older than you, that much older than you even, and they have not really gone for it. They haven't done the first phase. So since they're not young and I can say go do it, I have to support as part of our system that going out. So we have these crazy trips. We go here, we do there. People are dealing with large sums of money. People are dealing with people's welfare and doing construction and, all these kind of things that they never would have done, because the going out period, you can't circumvent the going out period by thinking that I'm old enough now, it's time to go home. So Pranavati has, she's old enough to be your mother, but she had to get up there and be the host at that thing. And that was going out for her. Does it make sense to you? Okay. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Russell Green, he's saying, is the underlying presumed agreement that peace and love are the desired collective uncovered states? Are there more? Thank you.
Well, Russell, those are terms. And the term when one is less covered, all those components of that term merge. So you don't have component A, but you have component B, and you don't have component C, but you have component E. At a certain level of state of being, the components are not separated. The components are what they are. They're part of that fineness. So we don't have to differentiate between the terms that refer to those components. And whatever else may be there would only be a component of something still yet finer and still yet finer. So whatever, I don't know, how does that answer for you?
He said helpful.
Okay.
There's, it's
Ask Russell where he is,
you
so I know how loud I have to talk.
said Encino, California.
Encino, California.
We have Paula in Florida. I'm curious about your experience. Are you afraid of anything? Do you regret anything? Do you consider regret a negative emotion? How have circumstances played a role in your life?
Well, if regret could do any good, I would consider it constructive. In other words, I see what I just did, I'm not going to do that anymore. What I'm talking about in learning is basically involves something that's called regret, but it's more like recognition. It's not necessarily a negative emotion that has a life of its own and becomes your experience. It leads to action. So regret that leads to action of some kind, of something that will help the uncovering process. If regret is recognizing you had a covering and that covering is not doing you any good, then I would call it constructive. I don't have a particular term for it. So I do see recognizing that there are things that you've done, not in your distant past, because that's, what do you say? Your past is just a goodbye. You don't have to go back there. Just, if you deal with the last 24 hours, every fucked up thing you've done in your life, you've done to some degree in the last 24 hours. It has been reflected. I could see it, you could learn to see it. So the whole idea of going back to childhood to see what, or past lives or anything like that, it's just overkill of self-examination, because whatever you have and still have, it's coming out. It's coming out in little things you do. You may recognize it, you may not recognize it. You could be taught to learn to recognize it, that it's not the past, it's the present. So that's important. What was the other thing? I regret,
You said that, are you afraid of anything? Do you regret anything? Do you consider regret a negative emotion? How have circumstances played a role in your life?
And I don't know how to respond to the question in English, am I afraid of anything? My body certainly knows danger. And I mean, a body that doesn't know danger is a stupid body. So my body doesn't have to learn to know danger. You know, the deer that walk around here, their bodies know danger. And there's no reason I should be stupid if a deer can know danger. So if she's talking about that, my body knows danger. My emotions don't know danger. My thoughts don't know danger. So my recognition that nobody can do anything to you is complete. No one can insult you so that you will feel bad. No one could take you down or bring you down or lock you up. What's the next word? I didn't say that. So my recognition of that is complete. I mean, it's taken a long time, but I do recognize that, and I will debate that with anyone who thinks that they are at risk from another person's words or another person's feelings or anything other than somebody can hit you over the head. Absolutely, you have to be aware of that. You have to recognize the nature of physical danger, but there is no emotional danger. There's emotional reactivity, there's an emotional receiving. But if you receive somebody else's fucked up actions as negativity for yourself, there's a synapse which is incorrectly functioning, because A does not have to lead to B. A can lead to compassion, not necessarily to B. Okay, go ahead.
I don't think that I know what not doing even looks like. When I think about what it might be, I think of something like meditation, which I don't even really know how to do. Can you give me some examples of what not doing?
No, absolutely not. I can steer you into tripping over it, and I am already steering you into tripping over it. So I can do that, but I can't give you the words about not doing. Mostly because you would interpret them in some way as, how do you do that? And that would be a distortion. But even if I could give you the words that would be helpful, I don't think that would be helpful. But I can give you indirect experiments to try, which would cost you like about a nickel of your risk factor, that would lead you in the direction of tripping over, not doing, if you were game. Okay, well, you? No?
Here.
Yes, go ahead.
First of all, I'm kind of new to the group. It's the first time that I come over here with my friend Jacob. We lived in the same space, and he invited me here. The reason why I decided to come is because I'm human and I'm fucking frustrated, and I'm angry. Not because there's a lot of pain inside of me. I've done my discoveries. It's what I do that brings this frustration. My service to the community. I teach at the probation department. I'm a music school teacher, and to do so much service, and to see that a lot of people really don't care, and a lot of people just take it for granted the importance of artists in our community. Like we make things cute, and it's the reason why you can charge $500,000 for a house. It's because we're here and we make things pretty. And you go and you work hard, you barely get paid, you struggle. I had a different life before this, very different. And it's by choice that I decided to put my art towards service, not taking into account that I'm human and that I was gonna get so goddamn frustrated about seeing what society thinks of me as an artist, or us if there's any other artist. It's really I put a lot of work on myself after my divorce. I'm trying to be a good dad, a good provider. But frustration coming from a psychological part, coming from a materialistic part, because sometimes it's really hard to make a living as an artist, and this is what I'm here to do. I can't just go and get a job at an insurance company and make money, because I don't know what the fuck to do. I'm just an artist, and God put me here to show my music and to steer and to make the sheep feel uncomfortable.
I appreciate what you're saying. I hear you.
I'm just frustrated.
I understand. I do understand, and I sympathize with your situation, and there may be some help that I can give in that direction. Come around some, and maybe we'll see. Maybe it can lead somewhere. I don't have like a magic bullet to pass over at the moment, but if you resonate with any of the things that I've said, maybe come back and maybe we'll get somewhere together.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? All done? Go ahead.
Okay. I feel like there's this like tank
angle, and I hope it comes out as a question, which is, recently I quit smoking. I've been a stoner forever. Addicted. There's an addiction there, and it was easier than I thought. And I had this moment of, like, basically,
Moment of what?
kind of almost like to my knees, like, oh my God. Like, I didn't do that by myself. I don't think I did that by myself. And I have enough, arrogance to think I do most of it by myself, and I've got it all under control.
Right.
So, and I sometimes feel like godless, because of that. And I'm using God, but you could say spirit or whatever, and I know you've used the word grace. So, is it in all your uncovering of yourself that you got to the place where you knew what that was, the creator, something bigger than you, something that's really directing everything, and you're not it? I think that's my question.
Well, if that's the case, then uncovering will reveal it. If that's not the case, uncovering will reveal it. But a person's concept of what is cannot possibly be what is, because it's a concept. People's concepts are all parallel because they're concepts. Like all words are parallel because they're made of letters. So they're parallels. Actualities are parallels to each other. So if you uncover something, then the next thing will be there. But you have to know what it is that's covering you for it to fall away. As I've said numerous times, nobody ever steps in dog shit deliberately. Now take that in. Take how absolute that is. If you call it mud, you may or may not step in it. If you call it chocolate, you may or may not step in it. If you call it anything else but dog shit, if you call it cow shit, you may step in it. But if you call it dog shit, you will not step in it. So what it takes to call something dog shit is not an easy thing, because it appears like it's an offense. Like you're being assaulted. Not necessarily by another person, but by an idea that I am a creature stepping in dog shit in this way that I'm doing it right now. That a negative reaction to this situation is equals stepping in dog shit. It's self-destructive. It doesn't do any good to anything. It's unpleasant. It smells. It's all those things. But it's very difficult for a person to assess themselves in that way. And I can say that categorically because I've been actively doing this for 50 years. 50 years. Actively doing this for 50 years. And I have not seen an exception to that. A person can actually see the subtle ways that they're stepping in dog shit. Help is needed. You don't know it. The same as learning to windsurf, as I've given an example. I went from not being able to stand up on the board and like cracking up hysterically, like every time I got up, I fell down. There was no way. I couldn't figure it out. And I'm pretty good around the water, but I couldn't figure it out until somebody showed me this routine of balance, and then I could do it. Some things just need a passing on to happen. Not how to do it, but how to do it. So my indirect method would not show you how to discover that, but it would show you how to discover for yourself what's in the way. You have a problem with that. You were never good at it. You may be better at it now, but I don't know. You always balked at seeing something about yourself that was self-destructive because you depended on it being not self-destructive. But what if it was self-destructive? You saw it from a view of I need it, I need it, I need it. I need to be a good person. I need to be kind. I need to think people like me. I need to think people like me. I need to think people like me. So when I gave you an opportunity for years to see something about yourself, not that I was telling you, but a way to see that about yourself, you balked. You didn't want to see it. And you ran. Well, I don't see that anything has changed unless maybe sometimes life teaches people lessons that otherwise don't come about, but sometimes not. There's a lot of really old people that don't know too much more than they knew when they were young. And there's some old people that have discovered a shitload just because life has taught them lessons. But more in the first category. Okay, last one. Go ahead. Double up.
Love defined as the lack of separation sounds like a noun. What am I missing?
Well, cleverness is a noun. And it's, and it's probably the most admired and destructive manifestation. And you're inculcated and addicted to your own cleverness. And that will have to be something you discover about yourself, that you're not doing yourself any good. Because this IQ thing, of which I have a pretty good number, led me to cleverness and to thinking that cleverness was the answer, especially competitive cleverness, because cleverness is only satisfying when you're cleverer than. So you try to be cleverer than me. How can that possibly be good if I'm the doctor and you're the patient? It couldn't be cleverer. But you are addicted so much to it that you're going to ask me later and say, I've been thinking about that. I don't like that answer. I have a problem with that answer. Tell me about that answer. Let's talk about it. And you will talk about it later today, think about it tomorrow, and the next day and the next day. Because your cleverness is self-destructive, and it's based on competition, and the competition is one that you will win. But you will not win that competition with me, because I will not compete with you on the basis of cleverness. I will compete with you on the basis of love. I got it, you don't got it.
You don't think it was a genuine question. You think I was just trying to be clever.
I don't think about it. I don't think about it. I know about it. But this kind of conversation, which I said to you the other day, is a waste of time, because you will interpret my words in your language. But we don't speak the same language. You speak a certain language. I'm trying to teach you a new language. You learn my language, I'll answer that question. I have told everybody that I know that knows you and is working with you, that you're willing to work with, to give you that answer. Anytime that you come up with it doesn't make sense, that the answer should be, first learn the language and then we can talk, rather than thinking that they're going to explain to you what you now are calling a conflict. If you can handle that, I don't think that's a nickel for you. I think that's a dime. If you're willing to gamble with that dime, I think it's going to come out good. Because as I've said, I think that you could do this. But you're going to have to learn the language. And I don't mean the vocabulary. Okay, all done?
Thank you.